Okay, never done this. I do not know if I will continue this going forward, but anyway, I am making this video as if I am uploading on the 4th Fry. This is not a new venture, this is nothing. I have been struggling to finish reading Meditations. So I am currently on book 7 of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, so graciously given to me by my very dear friend Arman Kumar, a published author himself, surprisingly. So I am on book 7 and I decided to read what I've written it down. Actually, surprisingly, I have written it down. I have written that we begin from book 7 from the Meditations, and I decided that I will record this on the best camera I possess, which is this Canon. And I have written down that I will read 5 points from Meditations and narrate them to the camera. So after basically narrating 5 of these points, I will go over these one by one. And try and understand what each of these means. Some of the points in this book are really trivial and hold no latent epiphanies in them. So some are quite trivial, some are quite long and profound. It's really all over the place. So any which way, I'll read 5. I'll read 5 to the camera, complete narration. Then I'll go over each one of them, try and understand what they mean, if they mean anything substantial, that is. So after reading and basically trying and understanding what each of the points mean, I will decide whether I will put any one of those points or all the points or any number of points that I've read in this little black notebook that I have in my possession. I already have written down some points, not exclusively from the Meditations, but from other podcasts and other media that I have consumed. So this little black book is what I would like to consider being my Meditations, which is basically a guidebook or moral code which I would like to live by, and anything anything I find useful to implement in my life. I'll read 1. So this is 1. I'm reading number 5 from my Meditations. People who share with you their lives, time, material, what have you, treat those people with real love and send happiness their way, however tiny it might be. So that's one example of what I have written down. Again, one smaller quote. The latest entry I have is, with feelings of powerlessness comes aggression. This is, I remember specifically, this is from Chris Williamson's podcast. I don't remember which one, but it was from him, definitely. So I'll read 5 points from Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, review them, try and understand, then review them. Then I'll decide if I want to write any of this down in this, basically my Meditations. If not, sucks for those 5 points, but anyway, I might or might not upload on YouTube, I do not know. I'm just recording this for myself right now. Maybe. Myself meaning this is basically, I think the ideal audience for this would be the people on the fourth fry, my Instagram account that I have with everybody I like. So this is something different. So we have book 7 starting now. Five points. Evil, the same old thing. No matter what happens, keep this in mind. It's the same old thing, from one end of the world to the other. It fills the history books, ancient and modern, and the cities and the houses too. Nothing new at all, familiar, transient. Number 2. You cannot quench understanding unless you put out the insights that compose it, but you can rekindle those at will. Like glowing coals, I can control my thoughts as necessary. Then how can I be troubled? What is outside my mind means nothing to it. Observe that lesson, and your feet stand firm. You can return to life. Look at things as you did before, and life returns. Number 3. Pointless bustling of processions, opera arias, herds of sheep and cattle, military exercises, a bone flung to pet noodles, a little food in the fish tank, the miserable servitude of ants, scampering of frightened mice, puppets jerked on strings. Surrounded as we are by all this, we need to practice acceptance without disdain, but remembering that our own worth is measured by what we devote our energy to. Number 4. Focus on what is said when you speak and on what results from each action. Know what the one aims at and what the other means. Number 5. Is my intellect up to this? If so, then I'll put it to work, like a tool provided by nature, and if it isn't, then I'll turn the job over to someone who can do better, unless I have no choice. Or I do the best I can with it, and collaborate with whoever can make use of it, to do what the community needs done, because whatever I do, alone or with others, can aim at one thing only, what squares with those requirements. Okay, so I have narrated the 5 points from book 7, the first 5 points from book 7. So the first one, evil, the same old thing. No matter what happens, keep this in mind, it's the same old thing from one end of the world to the other. It fills the history books, ancient and modern, and cities and the houses too, nothing new at all, familiar, transit. So evil, the same old thing. Okay, so I believe this is just evil. Maliciousness, whatever, something, anything evil is just nothing. There's the point is very self-explanatory. There's nothing profound about it. I feel at the time. बाद में जाके क्या होगा भगवान जानता है. Evil, the same old thing. No matter what happens, keep this in mind. It's the same old thing from one end of the world to the other. It fills the history books. By familiar. Evil in the world exists and has existed since ancient times and still exists now. It changes form. I think that's what this means. Again, by familiar and transient. Evil changes shapes, forms, means, whatever. Cool. You cannot quench understanding unless you put out the insights that compose it. You cannot quench understanding unless you put out the insights that compose it. वो समझ नहीं आया क्या है? Cannot quench understanding unless you put out the insights that compose it. Maybe this means that I have to externalize my thoughts to understand them. Basically, that is what I am trying to do. I am trying to write down my thoughts so that I can look back and think again about what I have thought. previously. But you can rekindle those at will. Why? Think about what I've thought. Like glowing coals, I can control my thoughts as necessary, then how can I be troubled? What is outside my mind means nothing to it. Absorb that lesson and your feet stand firm. You can return to life. Look at the things as you did before and life returns. You can return. You can rekindle those at will like glowing coals. I can control my thoughts as necessary. You can rekindle those at will. Glowing coals. I can control my thoughts as necessary. You can return to life. Look at things as you did before when life returns. Well, I think this entire point means that, again, I think the entire point means that once you externalize and write down your thoughts, and in the future you come back to the things you have thought about and think about them again, then how can you be troubled? Basically, I think this means that if you externalize your thoughts, write them down, and come back to them, come back to the things you have thought about and think about them again. Okay, so the camera fucked off right there. But nevertheless, point 3 I am on. My actions determine my worth, basically, because actions are the only thing I can put my energy into, physical energy. Anyway, so, and acceptance. I am limited by certain aspects of myself that I must accept, and if I can change them, then I must strive to change them. There's something not talked about in this, but further, we need to practice acceptance. So anything I cannot change, anything outside of my circle of influence, I have to accept as it is. But anything within that circle of influence, and I have the ability to influence and contort it, I should. Okay. After that, number 4. Focus on what is said when you speak and on what results from each action. Know what one aims at. Let's get the answer now. Focus on what is said when you speak and on what results from each action. Know what the one aims at and what the other means. We think about this simply. एक तो मैं इतना बोलता नहीं हूँ, और मैं जो बोलता हूँ मेरा बहुत point to point होता है most of the time, otherwise it's fucking rambling. Focus on what is said when you speak and on what results from each action. I think this is something I already do, or at least I'm trying to do. Focus on what is said when I speak. So as I'm speaking, should I focus on it? Maybe. Focus on what is said when you speak and what results from each action. No, I focus on what is said when you speak. So I think this means whenever I speak something, I should pay attention to the sentence I am speaking, and I might be overanalyzing this, that whenever I speak, I should be able to visualize, at least afterwards, as what the other person might have heard, in whatever context they might have heard what I said. Focus on that. I think this means, and on what results from each action. Well, whatever I do now affects events in the future. Butterfly effect, basically. Very boiled down if I don't eat, right, जैसे अगर अभी मैं देखो, if I don't eat dinner tonight and I wake up hungry, obviously that's a very crude example, but if I don't eat dinner, I'll wake up hungry, I'll eat some random shit, then the entire next day, entire tomorrow gets fucked in a broad sense. So I think that is what is meant on what results from each action. Know what the one aims at and what the other means. Basically know and try and understand what the other person is speaking to, what the point is they are trying to make, what they're striving to make a point at. The point they are striving to make and what they mean and whatever, just pay attention. Just pay attention. This basically means listen. This basically means be a very avid listener. Hear absolutely and attentively. Number 5. Is my intellect up to this? If so, then I'll put it to work. Like a tool provided by nature, and if it isn't, then I'll turn the job over to someone who can do it better unless I have no choice. Is my intellect जिनको अभी करना था is my intellect up to this? If so, then I'll put it to work like a tool provided by nature. So intellect is obviously a tool provided by nature. Sentience, as we all know. एक मैकॉनही का बहुत बढ़िया कोट था उसमें ट्रू डिटेक्टिव के फर्स्ट सीजन में, इसमें वही फर्स्ट सीजन नहीं था, मेरे को याद नहीं, बहुत बढ़िया. His entire character in that True Detective was very nice. Is my intellect up to this? If so, then I'll put it to work like a tool provided by nature, and if it isn't, then I'll turn the job over to someone who can do it better unless I have no choice. Well, I don't agree with this, that if my intellect is not up to this, then I'll turn the job over someone who can do it better. क्यों देना है? अगर मैं दूंगा मेरे को समझाना पड़ेगा कि कैसे करना है, क्यों करना है, मेरे को क्या रिजल्ट चाहिए, और वो करने के लिए बोलना पड़ता है, वो मैं बोलना चाहता नहीं हूँ. So for me, even if my intellect is not up to any particular task, I should strive to make my intellect up to the mark and have the innate ability to innovate and adapt my intellect to whatever the task requires. Basically, I don't agree with the first part. वही और आगे बोलता है, or I do the best I can with it and collaborate with whoever can make use of it to do what the community needs done, because whatever I do alone or with others can aim at one thing only, what squares with those requirements. This I agree with, or that I do the best I can with it and collaborate with whoever I can make use of it. Collaboration is something I agree on. It's slightly difficult for me. Again, need to work on changing that fact. To do what the community needs done, because whatever I do alone or with others can aim at one thing only, not squares with those requirements. We collaborate with others because ultimately you as an individual and you an individual and a part of the community itself, they all strive at one thing, strive towards one thing, and that is meeting requirements or whatever task might be at hand. So first part थोड़ा इसका अजीब सा है, but or I do the best I can with it. I agree completely that whatever my intellect is capable of performing at the moment, I should do it, and alongside that I should collaborate with somebody to what? To combine our efforts and strive towards the towards meeting the requirements faster. So that's that. These are the 5 points I have read, and I think I have understood. मुझे पता नहीं, but if I do this more often, I might be able to do it better. God knows. As for noting this down in this, any of these points, even नहीं, quench understanding, slightly interesting. This was interesting. Pointless personal possessions. Third point तो मेरे को आता है already. 7 habits में पढ़ा था. Focus on what is said. Again, I talk less. Whenever it is required, I speak. So that's not. Number 4 is fine. 5 also I think I do. I accept, but it's not worth writing about, I think. What is outside my mind means nothing to it. Absorb that lesson, your feet stand firm. You can return to life, look at the things as you did before, and life returns. ये अच्छा लगा है. तो समझ नहीं आ रहा लिखूं कि नहीं लिखूं. How can I be troubled? कुछ ऐसा कुछ इतना खास समझ में नहीं आया that I can condense it and write one thing in this. बाद में शायद समझ में आ जाए. अभी तो कुछ इतना nothing's jumping out. You know, nothing is springing up in my mind. Interesting. Second one was interesting. First was very general. Fourth was also kind of general. Fifth, again, I half agree with it. Fifth is also meh. Second and third are interesting. But third basically talks about, remembering what your circle of influence is. So I think I got that lesson from reading 7 Habits. Third also cancels out. So second remains. What is outside my minds mean nothing through it of all the lessons. Look at the things we did before. This is also kind of like that, circle. This is kind of also talking about circle of influence. But last line है, you can return to life. Last line है, you can return to life. Look at the things as you did before, and life returns. But I think I have internalized this enough to not writing it. So I have read 5, narrated 5, and I have decided not to write anything in this. बस बाकी पता नहीं था.